For over 200 years, a tiny, unassuming island off the coast of Canada has been hiding a secret. It's fueled one of the longest, most expensive, and honestly, most frustrating treasure hunts in history. It's a story packed with bizarre discoveries, brilliant traps, and a mystery that has cost fortunes and even lives. Today, we're going to try and get to the bottom of the Oak Island Money Pit. So this is where it all goes down, Oak Island. It's just this little 140-acre piece of land in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia. Doesn't look like much, right? But for centuries, people have been absolutely convinced that something of incredible value is buried right here, protected by a system so complex it almost defies belief. So how did this whole thing even start? Well, it wasn't with some ancient map or a dying pirate's confession. Nope. The entire saga kicks off because three curious teenagers just saw something weird, and what they found would spark a mystery for the ages. The story goes that a young man named Daniel McGinnis was wandering around the island when he spotted this strange circular dent in the ground, and right above it, an old oak tree had a branch that looked like it had been used with a rope and pulley for years. I mean, your mind immediately goes to one place, right? Buried pirate treasure. So he got his friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughn, and they decided they were going to be rich. And this is where it starts to get really strange. They start digging, and just a couple of feet down, bam, they hit a layer of carefully laid flagstones. Okay, weird. They keep going, and they realize they're in a man-made shaft about 13 feet across. Then, every 10 feet they dig, they hit another layer. This time, it's a platform of thick oak logs jammed right into the clay walls. This was no sinkhole. Somebody built this. That initial discovery, that was just scratching the surface. When a more organized search began a few years later in the early 1800s, it became terrifyingly clear that whoever built this thing really didn't want it to be found. They hadn't just buried something, they'd built an underground puzzle box, and it was deadly. So a group called the Onslow Company takes over, and the stuff they find just gets weirder and weirder. They dig through a layer of charcoal, then putty, then, at 60 feet, coconut fiber. Now stop and think about that. Coconuts do not grow in Nova Scotia. So how did they get there? And then, the big one, at 90 feet, they said they found a stone slab covered in strange symbols. Can you just imagine the excitement? They're 90 feet down, they found this mysterious stone, they decide to probe deeper. They jam a crowbar into the dirt, and at 98 feet, clunk. It hit something solid, something wooden. They were sure they'd found it, the treasure chest. So they call it a night, planning to come back in the morning and pull up their prize. But they never got the chance. When they came back the next day, the pit was filled with over 60 feet of seawater. They were devastated. And it didn't take them long to figure out why. It was a booby trap. An unbelievably clever flood tunnel had been dug from a nearby beach, over 500 feet, straight to the shaft. So here's how this brilliant, evil thing worked. The builders designed it so that as soon as someone dug past a certain point, probably breaking a seal of clay around 90 feet, it would open the floodgates. The Atlantic Ocean itself would rush in and fill the shaft. For 200 years, it's been the same story. Every time someone tries to dig, the ocean fights back. Which brings us to the million-dollar question, right? Who on earth had the know-how, the money, and the manpower to build something like this hundreds of years ago? I mean, the list of potential culprits is just incredible. Okay, so the theories are all over the map. Some are pretty possible. You've got pirates, like the infamous Captain Kidd bearing his loot. Makes sense. Or maybe British soldiers hiding a massive military payroll. Also possible. But then you get the really wild one, the Knights Templar. Could they have hidden their greatest treasures here after fleeing Europe? Maybe even the Holy Grail itself? Now, before you dismiss the Templar idea, some of the modern scientific evidence is pretty mind-blowing. Researchers have found artifacts that just don't fit the pirate timeline. Things like a lead cross that looks like it's from medieval times. They carbon dated some of that coconut fiber, and it came back from the 1300s. They've even found what looks like a wharf that dates back to 1200 AD. That suggests a massive European project on this island centuries before Columbus. And the clues just keep coming. Get this, back in 1897, a drill core from 155 feet deep pulled up this tiny scrap of parchment made from sheepskin. Under a microscope, you could see two letters, maybe VI, written in ink. I mean, what was that? A piece of a map? A page from a sacred book? We'll never know. But, okay, let's pump the brakes for a second. For every person who believes there's treasure, there's a skeptic who thinks the whole thing is a fantasy. A lot of historians and scientists argue the entire legend is built on myths, exaggerations, and just a basic misunderstanding of geology. So here's the biggest problem for the treasure theory. There are no original, first-hand accounts of the discovery. The stories about the three boys in 1795 and the Onslow Company, all of that was written down more than 60 years after it supposedly happened. That's a huge red flag, and it's led a lot of people to call it Hoax Island.
The whole debate really boils down to one simple question. Was the money pit an engineered vault, or is it just a weird natural feature? The skeptics say it's just a sinkhole, which are all over that area. They argue the platforms are just old logs and junk that fell in over the centuries and settled into layers. And one of the leading theories suggests a much more, well, boring explanation. What if the so-called money pit was just an industrial site? Some historians believe the British were secretly making pine tar there in the 1720s to waterproof their navy ships. In that version, the pit is just a tar kiln, and all those layers of wood and charcoal, just industrial waste. The pure geology argument takes it even further. Geoscientists point out that the island sits on soft rock that water dissolves easily. This creates a whole network of underground caves and tunnels called a karst system. They say the money pit is just one of these sinkholes that collapsed, and the flooding isn't a booby trap at all. It's just groundwater seeping in, which is totally normal for that kind of geology.
But here's the thing. Whether the pit holds pirate gold or just old tar, the belief in that treasure has had devastating real-world consequences. Over 2 centuries, the obsession with this island has taken a tragic and a very, very real human toll. 6. That's the number. 6 people have died searching for whatever's buried on Oak Island. And that number has given rise to the legend of the Oak Island curse. There's this old saying that 7 men must die before the island will give up its secret. So far, 6 men have lost their lives in all sorts of horrible accidents. Exploding boilers, falls, toxic gas. It's a grim legacy. But despite the cost, the curse, and all the scientific arguments against it, the hunt is still on. In fact, it's bigger than ever. The technology has changed, but that obsession, it's exactly the same. You know, they were bringing in heavy machinery way back in the 1800s. Today, the search is led by brothers Rick and Marty Legina. You've probably seen their show, The Curse of Oak Island, and they are using everything. Seismic testing, ground-penetrating radar, massive drills. They are throwing all of modern science at this ancient mystery, and they keep finding really intriguing things. And that leaves us right here with the ultimate question. After more than 220 years of digging, what is the real treasure of Oak Island? Is it a chest full of gold, or maybe even the Holy Grail waiting to be found? Or is the real treasure the mystery itself, this incredible story that has hooked generations of people?